Welcome to the American Slang podcast, where we will explore language and culture in different regions of the United States. Slang is a type of informal language that's typically spoken in a certain area or by a group of people. Culture is dynamic, language is dynamic, and in this podcast, we will explore the connections between them and the way new words and expressions emerge in different places in America. Today, I have an amazing guest on the podcast, Cami, who's been teaching English for over 10 years, and she specializes in pronunciation and in fluency, and she also does writing correction and TOEFL exam preparation classes, and I think she also helps people with daily English, everyday conversations as well. And also, I've seen a lot of grammar stuff that you do as well, so that's really nice. And today, I want to talk to Cami a little bit about her city, where, this place she was born in the United States, and a little bit about the slang that you might hear in Washington, perhaps a little bit about the language and how, language and culture and how they're related in your place and your city. So tell us a little, welcome, first of all, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
And I know that you were born in Washington, right? The state of Washington?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So in Washington State, I always have to specify that because when people hear Washington, they think DC.
DC, yeah.
And I'm like, no, Washington State, other side of the country. But yeah, I was born and raised in Washington State, really close to the biggest city, Seattle. I left and I moved to South Korea after graduating university. And I'm currently living in Texas. Most of my life was in Washington State.
Fantastic. That's such an adventure to travel to South Korea and teach English. And what a great cultural experience. And I'm sure you realized a lot about your U.S. upbringing and the U.S. culture when you were living abroad, more than you probably noticed when you were living in the U.S.
Yeah. And I didn't know that I had an accent or anything. So in the Northwest, especially in the Seattle area, we have the idea that we don't have an accent. We have the most perfect or neutral English. And when I moved to South Korea and was around a lot more expats, people were able to be like, "You're from Seattle, aren't you?" I
really?
can
They
hear.
can identify it?
Yeah. And I was so shocked that they could tell that I was from Seattle, because I thought, no, we don't have an accent.
Yeah. Was there something you were saying that was giving it away, or it was just your tone, your accent?
I think it could have been just general characteristics, how to behave. And there were some things that maybe are unique to Seattle, like the pronunciation of some words, like important.
Really?
But I've kind of heard that here in the South as well. So I don't know if it's that unique, or it could be the neutralness of my accent that people can notice, because I don't have a Southern accent. I don't sound like I'm from the East Coast or California. So maybe it is a little bit unique in a way.
So how do you pronounce important? That's different.
Important.
You just say important. But it's slightly different than maybe you would hear in the other parts of the US.
I don't know if it's that different. How do you say important?
I say important.
Oh, okay.
Important.
So you do the T more at the end. Yeah. I don't do the T. And actually, my husband, if he can hear some of my students, he can tell who which students I've had for a long time, because of how they pronounce important.
You train that with them a lot.
Well,
say important the Seattle way. You train them. It has to be the Seattle style of important.
Well, they naturally kind of pick it up. And I think that's what they hear. It's one of the first things that they'll pick up that's more unique to how I speak compared to what a textbook says or what they've heard from some other teachers. And so for my
that's true, because some people may be saying it more with a D sound, like important.
Oh, yeah. I just kind of drop the T. I tell them it's like a karate chop. So like you're important. And
I like the way that sounds.
sort of my teaching method for those things. It's the karate chop.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what do you think is unique about Washington that you might, I
Hmm.
don't know. I know there's near Seattle, there's a
Hmm.
famous mountain that everybody hikes.
Mount Rainier.
Yeah, Mount
Yeah.
Rainier.
Oh, there's
Yeah.
mountains on both sides of Seattle.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's actually a term. So, Seattle is very rainy, it's always
Yes.
cloudy. And
Yes.
instead of us saying it's a sunny day or wow, the weather is so nice, we use the phrase the mountains are out. So
Whoa.
that means
That
there
is
aren't any clouds.
brilliant.
So you can see the mountains that are on both sides of Seattle. And especially Mount Rainier, which is a big volcano, which
Hmm.
honestly kind of scares me, but there's a large volcano. If you ever see a picture of Seattle, it's usually the Space Needle
Uh-huh.
plus Mount Rainier in the
Uh-huh.
background.
Oh, that's fantastic. So it's like
Mhm.
a weather slang from Seattle. Like it's the mountains
Yeah,
are out. So
the
the
mountains are
mountains.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, the mountains are out. It's really beautiful. It's
Hmm.
so nature related too.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's just because it's so rainy and gray. And
Hmm.
so there are some things kind of related to that. Other weird cultural things don't really use umbrellas in Seattle because it just, yeah,
That's
you can
interesting.
spot someone who's not a native Washington person if they're not using an umbrella. Now, of course, if you have a certain outfit on or if you're trying to keep your hair styled a certain way, you might
Uh-huh.
use an umbrella. But most people from Seattle just use a raincoat and a hood.
Really? Is
What
that kind
I'm,
of to look
yeah,
cool
I
and
would.
fit in?
I
It's
feel like in Seattle, the fashion and kind of the behavior, it's very functional.
uh-huh.
And I know for me, carrying an umbrella around is not functional, or
Uh-huh.
especially walking into a store, then you have your wet umbrella. It gets the floor wet. It makes it slippery, and it's just a hassle to carry it
Yeah.
around. It's so much
Yeah.
more convenient to just wear a raincoat
Uh-huh.
and put your hood on.
That's
So that's,
fascinating. I love
yeah.
that. It's really interesting
Hmm.
just because I live in rainy
Yeah.
Galicia in Spain and we have umbrella culture, like an umbrella culture. Like if you go to the
Hmm.
local library, they have umbrella holders that you can pay to lock your umbrella up while you're at the library. And I've never seen that anywhere else in the world. And then umbrella
Yeah.
holders in front of every single restaurant, like so that while you're in the restaurant, you have a place to put your umbrella. It's just like an
Oh,
umbrella
yeah.
culture here.
Mm.
Yeah.
Same in
So,
Korea. They have like special bags that
oh,
you put your
yeah.
umbrella in. Um,
Which is
my
super
friends and I
eco
called it
terrible for the
like
environment, right?
umbrella condoms. Like that's kind of what they were like.
An
Um,
umbrella
yeah.
condom.
Yeah, definitely not eco-friendly. And I think that could be another thing in Seattle because they're very, very eco-conscious. So you
Yes.
don't see very much or as much reusable or non-reusable plastics.
Uh-huh.
Um, Definitely no bags for your umbrellas because we would go through them so quickly because it rains all the time in Seattle. But
Yeah.
also, when it rains, it isn't that kind of heavy rain
Mm-hmm.
very often. It can happen. It's usually a bit of a drizzle. Like
Mm-hmm.
we have so many different names for rain in
Yeah.
Seattle. You know how like
This is
Inuits have
like
so
the
many
Inuits
names for
have.
snow.
Yes.
We
I remember
have
studying that
very
in the
specific
anthropology
names.
class and the linguistics of culture and
Yes.
yes. So there's
So
lots of
many different
different
names.
names for rain in Seattle, like drizzle,
Well, we're very
misty.
specific. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh.
misty, drizzle, downpour, and one that showers, that's another one,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sprinkles,
Yeah.
and one that I'm not sure if it's as common, but I know some people say is spitty,
Oh,
like
interesting.
like
Spitty, like you're
spit, because
spitting. Yeah.
yeah, it's just a little bit of rain. So also
Uh-huh.
that's why we wear hoods, because when it's misty or just spitty rain or a sprinkle, like you don't really need an umbrella. It's
Yeah.
just kind of a faff to carry around.
And are the colors important? Do you think a lot of people in Seattle wear blacks and grays and dark greens or
yeah, I would say a lot of people wear darker colors. But there are two main universities in Washington State, WSU or Wazoo. It's on the east side of the state. That's actually where I went to school. And the colors are crimson or like a dark red and gray. In Seattle, the university is the University of Washington, or UW, and it's purple and gold. And so a lot of people will wear it. It's kind of more casual in Seattle, but they'll wear their school colors or whatever school they're really proud of. So you'll see that. But
are there some rivalries between those two universities at all?
Oh, yes. Yes. Really big rivalries. During the big rivalry football game every year, I used to work with the marching band for the university, and I had to be kind of act as a bodyguard or security for the marching band members when they went to the bathroom because they had been attacked.
Are you serious?
The rivalry can be really
like violently attacked? Really?
Yes. Yeah. But it's funny because I'm very short. I'm a very small person. I don't think my face is that intimidating, but for the girls, I had to like stand in front of their stall and keep them safe. If there was a guy going to the bathroom, obviously I couldn't go in, but I had to stand at the entrance of the bathroom and like yelling, "Hey, Mark, you're good? Are you still there?" Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And that's what, I was told that I had to do that. Just kind of keep the marching band members safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was really weird. Yeah. But yeah, dark colors, the grunge scene started in Seattle. So you do see a lot of plaid, like oversized clothing. So like what I'm wearing right now is pretty typical Seattle fashion. And
a lot of people, when I lived there for a couple months, a lot of people had tattoos. And I don't know if it was a big tattoo culture. Like everybody I saw in Seattle had tattoos. I was amazed.
Yeah, because it's a more, I would say, almost kind of rock and roll, alternative grunge kind of style thing. So very liberal, a lot less judgment about tattoos. But I know like with plaid, I'm very specific, especially now that I'm in Texas. There's a fine line between like grunge, Nirvana kind of plaid and farmer plaid. And that's always something.
You can kind of tell, you can distinguish farmer plaid from grunge plaid people?
Yes, also like the fit or shape of the shirt. Like it has to be a certain kind of oversized for it to be Seattle grunge plaid, like a grunge flannel. And then there's a certain fit that like people wear here in Texas. So here people are like, you're not from Texas, are you? Without me saying anything. They just look
just by the plaid you're wearing, the kind of grunge plaid?
Kind of like how I wear it, how I wear it. Yeah, like the fits and everything. So I prefer oversized. I love wearing it with a beanie, and I just want to look like
the beanie look was huge, and it is huge in Seattle. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would love to wear a beanie every day of the year, but I'm in Texas. It's really hot. I can't wear beanies often. Yeah.
Do you think there's any particular words you would hear in Seattle, or I don't know if there's any particular slang?
So I mean the phrase "the mountains are out," all the different ways to talk about rain.
Yes.
Older people, it's not really slang, but old people that are native to Washington, they pronounce the word wash in a different way, and it's only wash. So whether it's Washington or washcloth or whatever, they will say wash.
Yeah, interesting. Like wash the dishes, wash the dishes.
Yeah, wash. And then they from Washington, but that's only old people.
Yeah.
Another one that I think is interesting, at the deli, you can get these potato wedges. It's a kind of fried potato wedge. Everywhere else, they're called potato wedges or home fries.
Yeah, I've heard home
Washington,
fries before.
yeah, they're JoJo's.
JoJo's, really?
JoJo's, yeah. The sign won't say JoJo's. It might say like uh, home fries or something else, but everyone just calls them JoJo's.
Wow, interesting. A good food word for Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the name JoJo's. I think it's cute.
Yeah. It's great because I don't think you would hear that in any other place in the country, probably.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So there's JoJo's, one word. So just because I'm obviously used to the vocabulary from Seattle, I was looking at a list and I saw that pre-funk is not a have you heard of pre-funk before?
Pre-funk? No. I mean, I've heard of funk, but not pre-funk.
Right. So in other places, this is often like before a party. Maybe other people say pre-game.
Yeah, pre-game.
Yeah, you have some drinks before you go to a party or before you go to
in Iowa, we call
this
tailgating. I don't know if you would call that as well. Tailgating in Washington.
We would use tailgating as a more specific term. So
okay. Before the football game.
Yeah, like you're actually at the tailgate and that whole kind of party thing with a large group of people. Pre-gaming can be used, or pre-funk is usually used when you drink at home before going to a party, or before going to a bar, because alcohol is expensive. It's cheaper to have it at home.
Yeah.
Maybe some friends, or maybe even by yourself, you have a beer, take some shots before you go out so that you can save some money. So
pre-funk. So pre-funk. Wow, pre-funk. That's really fun. That's a really fun term.
Before the party.
So would you say like let's do a little pre-funk? Would it be doing pre-funk, or just let's enjoy the pre-funk, or
let's have a pre-funk, or so it could be a noun or a verb. So let's pre-funk at my house, or come over for a pre-funk before the party. Really fun. Yeah.
The weekend is nearly here, so I think
I know.
We already need to put a little pre-funk on the weekend calendar.
Right. Yeah. Or pre-funk for the weekend. Some people might say that, like, if you're having some drinks on a Thursday or something, like I'm pre-funking for the weekend. But it's more common to use it as the time to drink before going to a party or before going to the bar. To save money or reduce the social anxiety before going out. And then along the lines of that, of drinking things, most of my time was as a teen, or also at my university, it was a party school. Like Wazoo is known for being a party school. So that's where this comes from. I didn't realize that a rack of beer is not a term.
I've always heard a case of beer. I think a case of beer. Yeah.
Right.
What's a rack of beer?
A rack of beer is a 24 case of beer, or maybe people will say a 24 rack of beer, or just a rack of beer means a big box of 24 case. So, yep.
It's like a new, we need to add this to our English lessons. Like we do like lessons on containers, and now we're going to have to add, Seattle, here's the slang for beer, the rack of beer.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of my students are college students or wanting to go to university, and they're like, oh, what should I say? Well, pre-funk, rack of beer, those kinds of things. And also like the word filthy. I don't think it's used as much, but filthy meaning like cool.
Yeah, like that is filthy. That is it means like really good, like a really good quality, right?
Yeah.
Like
maybe
kind of like
really
sick
quality. Yeah, like sick or like bad.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like using a negative word to have a positive meaning, right?
Right. Yeah.
But it kind of
I
comes from that
don't,
grunge culture, right? That filthy grunge, maybe.
kind of filthy grunge. There is also like a hip hop and rap scene in
Uh-huh.
Seattle.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I think it more so comes from the hip hop and rap scene.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So like Macklemore, he's a rapper, and pretty famous, and he uses filthy a lot, but he was not the one to start using the word filthy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's just different
Yeah.
from here in Texas for sure.
Yeah, I know. And
Very different.
Texas is such a southern state that I'm sure it has
Mhm.
kind of a world of its own in terms of language and accent and the southern accent
Mhm. Yeah,
and
and I live in
I
a
wanted to
rural
ask you about
community.
y'all just because in every episode
Yeah.
everyone has an
Mhm.
opinion about y'all and I want to kind of know what you say.
Oh.
Do you use
Mhm.
y'all or do you still use you guys?
So I like using y'all. One, I feel like it sounds very friendly to say
Mm-hmm.
y'all.
Mm-hmm.
And then also it's gender inclusive.
Yeah.
So I think even though it is more of a southern thing, so some people on like the West Coast or East Coast are like, that's not from my culture or from
Mm-hmm.
my region. It's definitely not a Seattle thing. I do like that it is completely gender inclusive,
Mm-hmm.
identity inclusive, like it
Yeah.
works for everyone.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so that's why I incorporate y'all into my vocabulary just because it's non-discriminatory to
Mm-hmm.
everybody.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
like it. I like it too.
Mhm.
And I like the
Yeah.
way it sounds as well, you know.
Yeah, it sounds sweet. Like, I
Yeah.
think here in the South, people are definitely friendlier than, well, there are some things that are not as friendly, but in general, kind of
The southern
friendlier.
hospitality.
Yeah, a little more warm. And so when I
Mm-hmm.
hear y'all, it kind of gives that hospitality sort of feeling, that southern charm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in Seattle, not the warmest.
That's true. I noticed that when I was living there, people weren't exactly warm.
Right. Yeah. Polite.
Little standoffish, maybe a little, I don't know,
Yeah.
serious. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And I've read that it has to do with like the weather. Like people don't want to go
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah.
Um, it's easier to or less intimidating to hang out with someone outside at a park or somewhere
Mm-hmm.
else. But because the weather, you're kind of limited and you
Yeah.
don't really want to invite someone into your house as
True.
much. And
Mm-hmm.
like here in Texas, everyone's like, come to my church.
Hmm.
But Seattle isn't as religious. So there's not that kind of culture of like, come
That's
to my
true.
church.
I've never heard that
Yeah.
before. Come to my church. It is very southern, this idea of
Yeah.
like, come to my church. Yeah.
When I had my internet installed, the cable guy was like, hey, you should come to my church this weekend. Like,
You're getting all these church invites.
I
You're like,
don't know
okay, I
you.
guess I have to visit some
Uh,
churches and get to know the community.
yeah.
Yeah. Kind of a different
hmm
world in that respect.
And I never noticed it, but after being in Texas and then going back home, now I can notice the
Yeah.
Seattle freeze.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I do kind of prefer having my space. I do miss it a little bit.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. hmm
People are up in your business in Texas. They're like, so they
Oh,
want
for
to,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a little, okay,
hmm
well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for
Yeah.
being a guest on my podcast.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
of
I've
course.
loved hearing about these words that are very specific to Seattle, to it
Very
just they're
specific.
so culturally they fit with the place
hmm
and the environment. It's fascinating,
Yeah.
some of these terms that you
Yeah.
shared. I really appreciate
hmm
it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if
And
people
thank
want
you
to get in
again for
touch with
having me.
you, I'll leave
hmm
your YouTube channel, your Instagram handle, and all of your social
Okay.
media. This has been
hmm
such an
Yeah.
amazing conversation. I want you to
Yeah.
share the plaid thing as well, so we can get an idea of what fit you're
Plaid.
talking about, like a picture of the Seattle plaid versus like the farmer
Uh,
plaid. Be really
yeah.
interesting.
Seattle Plaid. I mean, I think you can kind of see like this plaid is called a buffalo check.
Oh, cool.
So you can see this kind, it's not like the really tight plaid. I think when you see the plaid that is like a really busy pattern where there's lots and lots of lines, it's very tight, that is not as much of the grunge type plaid. So also the fit, so a more oversized, baggy fit. And
the farmer plaid is oftentimes like a tight fit.
It's a lot tighter. Yeah, definitely tighter. And also in terms of the tucking into the pants. So
that would not fly in Seattle, the tucking into the pants, right? Maybe, or would you tuck in one side?
Yeah, like maybe just the front, or either no tucking or tucking in just the front part. That might happen, or just wearing it open, with a shirt underneath. I know these days a lot of girls wear just like crop tops or something underneath. Whereas in Texas, it is buttoned, usually buttoned up much higher, and a full tuck all the way around.
Interesting.
Probably with a big belt. And a cowboy hat.
Like a cowboy look.
Yeah, exactly.
The cowboy
farmer
look.
Cowboy.
Yeah. And so you never cease to be shocked on a daily basis by the Texas plaid look.
I thought that cowboy boots and like cowboy hats were just a thing in movies or at rodeos. No, they wear them on a daily basis, and they have their cowboy hats for different purposes, like your special occasion cowboy hat and boots, and then your work cowboy hat, like for manual labor, and then like a daily cowboy hat.
That's amazing.
Now I'm in a rural area, so this is a farming community, but I know you gotta go.
Yeah. Oh my God. So next time, maybe we can have another conversation about your community in Texas and some slang there, Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the episode with Cami. Today we learned so many great terms, like the mountains are out to describe a sunny day in Seattle, and also the fact that nobody really uses umbrellas, that people put their hoods up, and that there's so many words to describe rain. And even the word spitty is a new word for me that really describes a drizzle. And I really enjoyed hearing about the grunge scene and the word filthy, for example. And just the fact that the plaid in Seattle has a buffalo check rather than it's not really tucked in tight into the jeans like in Texas. And it's not a tight look, but it's a loose shirt. And that kind of plaid that's loose and baggy is really trendy there. And so what do you think about a pre-funk? A pre-funk this weekend. It is a word to describe a pre-party before you go out. Well, I am so excited that this episode was absolutely fascinating. And maybe it makes you want to visit Seattle and get to know the culture. I'm Anne. I forgot to introduce myself. I am a virtual educator. I work for the English language programs with the U.S. government, and I work with pre-service teachers online. And then I also have TOEFL IBT speaking courses, and I do some exam preparation on the side. So if you're interested in joining one of my courses, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. And the upcoming episode next month is going to be focused on New Orleans slang. We will be learning so much about the dynamic mix of cultures in the South, in Louisiana. So subscribe to the podcast, leave a positive review if you're loving it, and thank you for being a loyal listener, and I'll see you next time.